And if you are just tuning in exclusive, Dow Constantine allegedly using on a great taxpayer expense, more than six figures, King County Sheriff's personnel as his personal Uber, drive him to bars at night. Our source says that he likes to go drinking most nights. And there are a lot of questions that come from this. Fiduciary responsibility to taxpayers, but also a readiness if there's an emergency in the county. When we spend a lot of money on King County emergency management, and if our county execs out drinking every night, but it's just the abuse. And these sheriff's deputies, who so many had contacted me over the years, and the phrase I kept hearing was that it's emasculating. You have to put your life on the line for who you are protecting. I mean, they are akin to a local version of the Secret Service. They're supposed to take a bullet for Dow Constantine, and he makes them wait in the car while he's drinking in bars, and then, according to our source, walking up the street from bar to bar out of their eyesight, which is not what they're trained to do. It's an incredible story. If you missed it, we will recap it for you again at 2 o'clock and kind of tell you how it all came together, the making of this story. But I'm very proud of it. I'm very proud of our reporter, Carolyn. I think it's one of the best exclusives we've ever had on this show. So, and we've got stuff up at mynorthwest.com. Our great staff there has been working it on the digital side, too. Okay, so that's one reason I'm frazzled, because we've been putting this together. And then Ursula, I mean, right after I get off the air today.
Right after, because you told us the time that you're supposed to be leaving, and I'm telling you right now, you better hope that there is not a single accident between here and the airport.
Do you have pre-check? Have you got pre-check yet?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm pre-check.
I don't know if you'd make it if you didn't.
I have to check a bag, which I never do. I never check a bag when I travel.
And hopefully it makes it.
But I've got it's a direct flight. I think it's direct.
Well, I know, but hopefully it makes it on the plane.
Stop! I'm already frazzled enough. Anyway, so as soon as I get off the air, I'm climbing aboard an airplane, and I'm going up to Sitka. Brock went this morning, and then Captain Tom Nelson from the Outdoor Line, they're picking me up at the airport. I talked to Tom. Yes, he's been sending me pictures for the last few weeks.
What's the weather like right now?
50, mid-50s, a little choppy on the seas.
A little choppy.
Yeah.
Brock was warning him yesterday. You're going to get a little sick.
Dramamine. It's your friend.
I don't even know if they have Dramamine. But
well,
you can bring it with you.
Is that over the counter?
Yes. Oh, yeah.
I didn't know that. I've never taken it. I don't
can wear like a bracelet.
You want it.
I'll be fine. I'm not going to have motion sickness. So anyway, they're picking me up at the airport, and they said, we're going to get your bags to the hotel, and then you're catching your first king tonight.
Which we now know. King.
Yes. Schnook. So they claim that I will, by midnight tonight, I will have caught the first fish of my life.
And are you eating this fish?
Well, eventually.
Okay.
Yes,
Bring it home with them.
You're so picky.
I'm bringing home for all of you and for my wife. I'm bringing home the salmon and halibut.
I prefer the halibut. Can we have a barbecue when you get back?
Yes, we'll have a barbecue at the house. Yeah, and because, as you know, I like to live off the land, or in this case, the sea. So I'm really nervous about this. It's 4 years old. My dad, he left town and went and worked at a grocery store in Ketchikan. And so one summer when I was 4, my mom and I drove up to Ketchikan.
Wow, that's a long drive.
It was awful. I just remembered this.
You remember at 4?
That was a lot of Archie comics in the back seat.
Oh, absolutely it was. And I remember trucks flashing their lights to tell us to pass on this endless Canadian highway. And then we took leave there, at least then, don't know if it's still there, there was a wooden boardwalk right down by the harbor in Ketchikan. And I remember there were some sailors in town, and there were a couple of women on the corner of this wood. And how I knew this at 4 years old, I knew they were hookers. I swear to you.
Wise beyond your years. 4 years old?
Yes. And I was down there because there was a little store that sold comic books, and I was there to pick up a comic book. And I see the hookers come up to these sailors, and the sailors, they didn't look like they were much older than me. But they just got kind of a scared look, and then they turned around, and they started walking, and then they started running, and the hookers are screaming after them, "Chicken ass!" Except they were saying the whole last word, "Chicken ass!" Because they wouldn't buy their services.
Really?
I knew all of this at age 4 somehow.
You're just exposed at such a young age.
So it's going to be really good for me to get back to Ketchikan. Yeah. Okay, one other.
Oh boy.
I'm just
You and
listening to
Brock.
the song. Yeah, it'll be fun. One other quick thing. So I told you yesterday that I have made an absolute commitment to start being a friendlier person
Yes.
out in
Which
public.
I told you. That was the happiest thing I'd heard all day yesterday.
And I said that a book that I was reading this last weekend when I got away for a little weekend, that it really was a contributing factor to it. And a bunch of people texted in and said, "What is the book?" And I didn't say it. It's actually the latest book by Tim Tebow.
Great.
Yeah, the former Heisman Trophy winner, and now he's struggling as a minor league baseball player. But it's called "This Is the Day," and it's just about how he lives his life of faith and about how he's dealt with the adversity of nobody thinking he can do it in baseball, and he probably can. He's really struggling in the minor leagues, but it's just I like hearing from.
He always seems like everyone who's encountered him talks about what a gracious, kind person he is.
Exactly. And he talked about how he tries to make every interaction in his life, he tries to make that person's life better. And I thought, what a great credo to live by, and how absolutely divorced I've been from that for much of my life. So I'm working at it there. But that's the book for all the people who ask. Tim Tebow, This Is the Day. I got an email from a listener that I want to share with you. It's from listener Steve. This kind of illustrates the insanity, the double standard, how we have two classes of people, those against whom laws are enforced and those who are above the law. And what's ironic is, in our region, there are two classes of people above the law. Politicians and the connected, and heroin addicts and the street vagrants. Everybody in the middle is supposed to abide by the law. Everybody at both extremes, law doesn't apply to them. And I got a frustration email from listener Steve, who writes, "Hi, Dori, longtime listener, 20-year resident of Georgetown, lifetime Seattle resident, grew up on the mean streets of the U District. My wife called me at work this morning, telling me that Seattle police and parking enforcement were getting ready to tow my registered vehicles parked in front of our house. How did this fun episode begin? Earlier this year, on 2 occasions, the city placed parking barricade signs around 2 square blocks with a notice stating no parking for 72 hours. This was done to tow homeless RVs or give them warning to move. I travel for business frequently, and on the first occasion, my wife called and asked if we should move our vehicles. I told her, no, even the city of Seattle is not clueless enough to tow legally registered vehicles parked in front of the residence. He said, they can run the tag and get the home address, right? Well, this morning, I was proven wrong. After my wife's call, I went home. The Seattle police officer informed me that my legally registered vehicles parked in front of my house were going to be towed. I asked him, can you check the registrations on the cars? He said no. I told him I don't want my 5-foot-tall wife coming home from her job at 9 p.m. and having to park 4 blocks away and walk through this homeless drug bazaar we call Georgetown. He didn't care. Eventually, another Seattle police officer came over and told me he would work with me on this and will not tow my vehicles. But Steve asks, when did this become acceptable? No one supports the police more than my family. I was genuinely pissed that the Seattle police treated me with such disregard and gave a bureaucratic BS excuse. Can the Seattle police really not distinguish between a legally registered vehicle parked in front of the owner's house and a homeless RV? Seattle is dead. That's from listener Steve. That is surprising to me.
It is. But it's surprising, but actually something happened recently to my mom. She and my dad, again, they're in their 80s.
Mhm.
They live in kind of close to the U District, just slightly north of there. So no parking, so you have to park on the street. My mom had an expired disabled, my dad is disabled.
Yeah.
And but the disabled parking permit was expired by a month. She got a $250 ticket, even though she wasn't in, it was just because it was hanging. She wasn't in a disabled parking spot.
Really?
She was just on the street, but it was expired. Yet, I'm not kidding, not even a half block away, there is open drug dealing. There are, tents in the middle of the, greenery there.
Yes.
But here, my elderly parents who are on limited income, she gets this hefty fine.
And because they can afford to pay it. So the people who are breaking laws every single day, but they can't afford to pay fines, we just don't enforce the law at all. And we're going after the more law-abiding, tax-paying, job-creating citizens. It's really crazy. Next up in the Fastest 15, remember, what was it, just a week or two ago? Jenny Durkin was telling us how safe Seattle is?
It's a safe place.
Yeah. What was the story you just had in your news, that an unprecedented level of violence in a 12-hour period? And that's more than Seattle.
Yeah, it's just the
That's
Seattle
throughout the
area.
region.
Yes, because there was this latest one, the shooting outside of an RV in the Licton Springs neighborhood, which has had its issues in recent months.
Yeah, and, so on, 1 second, Jenny Durkin's talking how Seattle's safe and how this is all exaggerated, and they're sending out press releases talking about how it's all, false narrative. And then they have to confront, like there was a gang shooting where children were shot on Memorial Day.
This kind of violence is not acceptable. We will investigate, we will hold people accountable, and we will make sure that people can feel safe in their communities.
And as I said yesterday, what a bold statement by the mayor, declaring that shooting children is not acceptable. Of course it's not. That doesn't need to be said, but we have such a gang problem around here.
We believe, as the police have indicated, that there's a number of rival gangs that are having some turf issues. So we're continuing to investigate that.
It is a widespread gang problem. So I'm watching one of the local news stations, and I think this was King 5. Yeah, I got a write-up from King 5. Because they quoted at the city council meeting, Lorena Gonzalez. She talked about this gang shooting where children were shot. And she said, and I quote, it becomes particularly concerning when children as young as 2 fall victim to gun violence. Again, we all agree on that. But then she said, this is why we need tougher gun laws in Seattle. And that's when you start, here, let me find the exact, the need for tougher gun laws. Seattle officials call for tougher gun laws after shooting that injured mom and baby. This is like dealing with a 3-year-old intellectually. Do you believe that gang members are going to be deterred in any way by a tougher gun law? The only people who are impacted by tougher gun laws are law-abiding citizens who you want to turn into criminals because they may want to defend themselves against the gangbangers. But I guarantee you, no gang member is going to say, oh, they passed a new bill in Seattle. This gun's illegal now. We better not go shoot up the streets. That's not the way gang members think. And the fact that city council members think like that shows what an absolute void of leadership we have, how intellectually not bankrupt, how they are so distant from reality. They have no clue about reality. And finally, in the fastest 15, so every day Nicole and I talk about Jeopardy the night before.
So fun right
I'm
now.
all in. I'm just all in on this James Holzhauer.
I'm in love. Love James.
Are you?
He's adorable in the nerdiest way.
He is married.
I know.
But
I don't.
She
I wasn't
finds-
planning on going after him.
No,
I'm
but
just
you
saying.
find it very attractive that he's kind of wheeling and dealing and
It's the sense
breaking-
of humor in his
Yeah.
case. I think it's fun that he's trying to, make the show fun again.
He's a goofy man.
He's very goofy, and it's such a nerdy sense of humor, but it just is so fun for Jeopardy.
Do you think at any point, I mean, I know the ratings are still going up. Do you think at any point, though, I mean, if he just keeps winning and winning and winning, it's like, okay, no one has a shot.
No.
Do you think it's ever going to,
Yeah.
are they going to have to change the rules?
No.
No, there was a couple
He'll win.
what was it, last Thursdays or Fridays was really close.
Oh, okay.
He's had a couple
was
close
behind
calls.
most of the game.
It'll end one of these times. But at the beginning of every show, the announcer, Johnny, I don't know Johnny's last name, this, and he kind of hisses the, this
Yeah.
is Jeopardy.
Yeah.
And Alex Trebek walks out. I get so sad because you know that he's got what's been described as terminal cancer.
But
He's
for someone who's going through what he's going through, he looks amazing.
And he said that he has to, in between tapings, lay down in the fetal position, almost crying because of the intense pain. But listen to this update. He just said in an interview, Alex Trebek, it's kind of mind-boggling. He said he's made a remarkable turnaround since announcing his diagnosis of stage 4 pancreatic cancer. Doctors say he is in near remission. He says he's been responding very well to chemo, is nearing remission. The prognosis is not very encouraging, but he says he's going to keep working, and he's planning on being back for the new season this fall.
Well, that's fantastic.
It is. It's
I mean,
awesome.
if you can have some level of quality of life, and I mean, that's what you hope for. There were some of these
Yes.
cancers that it's never going to go away, but if you can eke out,
some
some great years.
Yeah, exactly. By the way, you're not watching it, right?
No.
Did you watch last night?
Oh, yeah.
What kind of a freak was that young woman on the show?
Oh, yeah.
She was the freakiest. Alex Trebek had never heard this before. He said to her in the contestant interviews, he goes, "You're scaring the hell out of me."
She told him that she was voted in high school the most likely to, and then she put her fingers together and did this evil take over the world.
Yeah.
And then she continued to go on about why people thought she might take over the world.
I think she was she looked like she was maybe late 20s. They described her as a stay-at-home mom. She's kind of cute. And she opened her mouth, and it was like the demon was inside.
It was
It was so
weird.
freaky. Okay. All right, there you go. That is your fastest 15.
This has been the fastest 15 minutes in the news. Fast. Dori's fastest 15.
You give us 15 minutes, we'll give you the world. Nicole, what do we have coming up next for our listeners?
Senator Doug Erickson. It's a great story.
Yeah, your tax dollars are going to increasingly radical universities. Details next. This hour of the Dori Monson Show is brought to you